Did you see the Walter Hamada panel? Either of you guys with
This
Jim
is
Lee and Berlanti?
multiverse.
Yeah, the multiverse panel
Yeah.
essentially. So it was like them explaining the multiverse. But like the interesting thing was because with Walter Hamada when he came in and took over DC, he's not as an integral figurehead or as involved of a figurehead, I guess you could say, as like a Kevin Feige is with Marvel. But ever since he kind of took over this new regime of WB and DC, they've been pretty much winning. I mean, that's the Joker got made with him there, because he came in right when Aquaman was coming out. I think right before it released. That's kind of when he took over. So like, and everything post like Aquaman has been kind of done under Walter Hamada, and like, but we've never really like I said, compared to Kevin Feige, he's not like a big figurehead. This was really the first time that we really got to hear him speak about anything publicly, at least, especially in this format about the future of DC films and everything. And I thought it was a good move, the way like him and Berlanti and Jim Lee, all
Jim.
Jim. I mean, he's pretty much is on a first name basis for anybody watching this. Probably, if I say Jim, they're probably gonna know who I'm talking about. But they the way they explained, like, I didn't get the feeling from them that they're looking to expand the multiverse out, like, and do like a big crisis event kind of thing. Like the way, especially how Hamada was putting it, like this allows them to actually focus on just making like good movies, essentially. Like, because Marvel and the MCU, all their things are connected. They're gonna have one connected storyline, and they're gonna like they do that great. But like, what I got from this is that all they're focused on anymore is just making good movies. And if in the future, them doing the multiverse and saying the multiverse exists for them just opens the door if they ever did want to, for instance, throw Michael Keaton into a Flash movie like they're doing. And I've been wanting them to kind of do that for, I don't know, forever, because like they, for the longest time, and they even commented on this, Berlanti commented on this, especially during that panel, like for the longest time, he'd want to be able to like put somebody in Arrow or something, and like Deathstroke is a perfect example for this, and I think he even used this example. Like they wanted to use Deathstroke, and they can't anymore because they have plans to do it with him in the films. But then maybe that film never even happens, so like now nobody gets to use him. And it's just like they played that game of cat and mouse with all their characters for like the longest time, and it just wasn't very productive for everybody. And it was kind of, I don't know, like in some ways, kind of condescending to the audience because they're like the higher ups at WB. One of their like main reasons for not wanting to do it was they don't want to confuse people. And I loved Greg Berlanti even commented on it, like he never really understood this because when he watches an animated Batman movie, he knows it has nothing to do with Ben Affleck's Batman or anything. Like it's two different things. If he watches something on TV, it doesn't have to mean it's the exact same thing. Like people aren't stupid. And I love like hearing some people that are actually like in charge say these kind of things that I feel like at least myself and I know a lot of fans out there have kind of been pleading for in some ways for years. Because DC's had this multiverse thing kind of in their back pocket that they could just, even without the multiverse, if they never wanted to cross anything over and actually do it, like just make good movies, and then if something works, maybe cross it over. Just do it. So what do you guys think? Or Rick, what do you think about like the multiverse stuff with them? And do you think that they're actually gonna? Do you think more like me? They're just gonna like kind of do what they said and just, I don't know, just focus strictly on these single movies, like more Joker kind of movies, these completely standalone, like Robert Pattinson's Batman, completely standalone. Or do you think that they're gonna give in to the potential success of some of these movies, like Joker made $1 billion? So do you think that's gonna make them more inclined to say, well, maybe we should just cross this over with Robert Pattinson? What do you think they're gonna do?
I think eventually they'll go that direction. I mean, like you said, they're doing pretty well standalone as it is with like Joker, and I'm sure Batman will do well, and the Batman. And I think eventually, in some way, shape, or form, they'll just kind of fall into that.
Do you think it's
like crossing things over? And
what do you think, like I'm sure they'll cross some. That's the thing. I don't know if they. It really depends on what I guess what the content is. Because I mean, that was one thing. Like it seemed like Hamada made it pretty clear. Like he wanted it to. He would only do it if it made sense, which is obviously the best way to go.
Well, yeah,
But
that's a good way
because
to
the
go.
only thing I do worry, and I don't think this will happen. Like I think the old DC regime and the old Warner Brothers regime, I could almost guarantee that if they were still around right now, like when Joker came out, I bet you they'd be trying to pay Joaquin Phoenix all the money in the world to be Robert Pattinson's Joker. Like I think that's what the old DC would have done. But I
Yeah.
think now, especially with them saying like leaning into the multiverse is kind of a way to I don't know. I think them saying all this stuff and doing the multiverse thing is kind of a way of easing the minds of the general audience, to the higher ups, to kind of allow them to say, like Todd Phillips had a good idea to make a Joker movie, but it doesn't have to connect. Like let Todd Phillips just make a Joker movie, and like we don't need to integrate Joker and worry about how Joker is going to affect Robert Pattinson's Batman. We don't need to worry about it. That's its own thing. I think they're just going to use the multiverse just to kind of give them an excuse in some way to keep things separate. You know what I mean? What do
Yeah.
you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, I personally feel like the multiverse is something that's it's in DC's DNA. I mean, it goes back to 1961 with the Flash of Two Worlds and the introduction of the multiverse in the comics. And that was, as much as Marvel has kind of expanded that concept in their universe, and you have the Marvel 616 universe, which is their main, and they do have alternate worlds now. It really, the idea of a multiverse in comics started with DC Comics, and it's been a big portion of it, such a big portion that they revamped their entire line of comics in the 80s because they felt it got confusing. So I don't know why they haven't just accepted that and leaned into it, and taken that as part of who they are, because it is part of their history. So I'm excited to see that they're embracing that and going with it.
Do you worry though that it'll become let's say they lean too heavy into multiverse and kind of doing a lot of crossovers that even if they don't do a lot of crossovers in general, do you think at some point it'll become, like you said, just too much? Because I mean, eventually it became too much for them, and they had to do Crisis to merge everything.
Sure. Well, I think like everything in life, moderation.
Yeah.
Everything in moderation. Like, don't overdo it. You don't want every movie to be having Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton, Christian Bale all dropping in as Batman just to peek their head around the corner and say, "Hey, you
Right.
wanna use those where the story fits." So yeah, listening to him talk about we're gonna do it where it makes sense and where it fits is encouraging. But we're not just gonna throw Henry Cavill into what like Supergirl TV show just because we can, because we've established there's a multiverse.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
I'd be fine if they did that. They could put Henry Cavill in anything, man.
Hey,
Especially
well, okay,
Nate's
yeah,
got a
bad example.
Rob's
but
got a
you keep doing it, and same with Ben Affleck. Just throw him in everywhere. As long as you're keeping him around, I don't give a shit what you do.
Rob's got a bit of a man crush on both of them.
Yeah, as long as you don't
Hey, I'm
make
right
him
there
a
with you.
job, and as long as they ain't losing. Like if you threw Henry Cavill in that Supergirl show, as long as he doesn't lose a fight to Supergirl,
Yeah, for real.
that's fine.
That's
Like
very
you do,
true.
you do you. Like that's yeah. I mean, I totally agree, and that would be my only worry is that things become too convoluted. But I think as long as we're under our current leadership here with WB, I don't think that would become a problem. In all honesty, or like I said, I feel like the old regime at Warner Brothers, we more than likely probably run into that because they already kind of proved that that's kind of the that's kind of where they were heading. They were just being reactionary to everything. They took Justice League being
Well,
a perfect example.
the day that Batman Forever came out and movie audiences went and saw it and it made millions of dollars, that should have been the end of all this. Audiences are stupid and they can't decipher between two different characters, because you switch Batman completely and audiences went right along with it. That movie made a ton of money, and it had nothing to do with the fact that, people weren't scared off because It was a different actor. People were smart. They figured it out. And that should have been the end of it. But no, you still had to endure the entire 2000s and Smallville with references to a billionaire child in Gotham. But,
Right,
it was just
Yeah.
really convoluted stuff that was stupid. And I'm glad we're past that, hopefully.
But yeah,
For
not
sure.
to mention too, and I talked to Rick about this a couple weeks ago. I forget what we were talking about, but like even in this typical, regular drama TV shows and just movies in general, like they change actors. Look how many Jack Ryans there've been.
They do that a lot.
Like,
Yeah.
no one cares. Like people,
It doesn't bother me a
stupid.
bit. Like I don't even really think about it.
Yeah, as long as you get a good actor, like I think that's all people really care about. Because it's jarring for like 2 seconds. Like it's like if you go to it like sticking in the DC world, Maggie Gyllenhaal replacing Katie Holmes in the Dark Knight
Oh, yeah.
trilogy. You know what I mean? It's
Great
like
example.
Yeah.
it was jarring for like 2 seconds, and then like as soon as you get past that first scene, you forget about the actress.
Oh,
It's just
Yeah.
okay. That's our new whatever her name was. I can't even remember her name right now. The character's
Rachel.
name. Yeah, Rachel. How could I forget, dude?
Yeah.
We were just talking about that last week when she was on the fear gas and stuff on the roof, screaming out for Alfred. Alfred. But yeah, so I think it's time. I'm happy they're doing it. Actually, like I hope they use it in some neat ways, like they already are with the Flash. Like I will say, I am glad to see that they are leaning into it in a fun way, and not just it being an excuse to make standalone movies. Like not just an excuse for them to not continue the DCEU because it wasn't received well from critics and fans. Like it's like a 50-50 split. Some people liked the Snyder stuff, and then you got half the people who didn't like the Snyder stuff. So I'm glad that they're not just using the multiverse to say slowly cut away from that, and that they're actually using it to do something cool and like what's hopefully more than just like a 5-second cameo with like Michael Keaton's Batman in the Flash movie, and then bringing Ben back for the Flash movie. That's at least still in continuity, so it's not really multiversey. But having our boy Keaton back to literally reprise his role and not play a different character, it's a literal. They've confirmed it's like continued role from Batman '89 and everything. That's cool. I do want to see them actually utilize some of the more fun stuff with the multiverse and not just do it for the sake of making standalone movies. Like every once in a while, fan service is good. If you use it right.
In moderation.
Yeah.
Like
If
John
it's
was
used
saying.
right. Like you said, like you don't need to have some don't just throw like Tom Welling Superman and like because they did in Infinite Earths on the CW Crisis.
Sure.
They had Tom Welling in there, which everybody's wanted to see him come back and be like for one, just be Superman because he played Clark Kent for 10 years, and you never get to see him be Superman besides in one quick scene at the very end of the show, and he's still not really even there.
Yeah.
Like they bring him back 10 years later to I mean, spoiler alert, he's definitely not Superman in the Crisis on Infinite Earths thing. Like
Hanging out on the farm.
yeah, like it's I mean, I don't know. Like that stuff bothers me. That's bad fan service. That was just fan service just to like I don't know. It didn't serve the story. You could have cut it out. It didn't do anything. It didn't need to be there. It was dumb. Like so I don't want them to do that. So although Lucifer popping up in that thing was pretty cool. Like
That was hilarious.
but I like Lucifer a lot. So
Yeah.
but anyway, let's move
Lucifer's
on to
great.
our dude, that show's great. Have you
Like,
been watching it?
Underrated. I am not caught up, but I've watched the first 3 seasons or so, and I'm trying to fit it in among all the other DC shows I watch. So
Too much
but
content.
every time I watch it, I go, I need to just watch this more. I don't know why I don't watch this more.
Well, it's
so
funny
good.
because if you've watched all through season 3, season 4 is when it went to Netflix. So that was its best season. Like season 4 was the best one because they went to like down to like 10 or 13 episodes or 8 episodes. They did the typical Netflix thing of having a short, 10 episode season, we'll say, as opposed to they had to stretch this story out and have all the filler episodes on network television. And like I hate that. Like honestly, like I hate that. I wish on network TV, and it was funny because the girl who plays Iris on the Flash TV show, apparently I haven't watched the Flash for the last like year or two, But on one of those panels in Fandom, apparently on this previous season or the current season of Flash, I forget what it is, they had to, like, because of COVID, cut production. So what they like, I guess, had enough time to where they could end their like first arc for the first half of the season. So then in the second half of the season, they're just starting like a new villain arc. And she herself even commented on how like that was so much better than literally stretching it out and having filler episodes like
Yeah.
throughout like this 20 episodes. So I don't know. I just thought it was kind of nice to see. I always complain about that because it's just like Supernatural was probably the only exception where their filler episodes like I was fine with because I just like hanging out with the boys. Like I just like hanging out with those dudes. Like it's fine if they're just gonna have a stupid episode where they're animated with Scooby Doo. It's fine. Like, but like a lot of shows just aren't really suited well for it, and, I don't know, I thought that was interesting, get like, she even commented that, "Yeah, we got to split it up, and it was great," and,
Yeah.
so, yeah, then that's just something that Netflix has always done good, in my opinion, like, I wouldn't have wanted 20 episodes of Daredevil, for instance, like, they were able to tell a tight story in 10, and that's it, like, that's all we needed to do. But let's move on to what typically would be like a main event thing, but we got so much news.